So, hello students, welcome to the question number 2 of our DAM. So, this question says, this is about Jainism. Obviously, you already kind of solved it. The question says, a statement called table exists. Okay, this is the statement. Then the question is, what is the problem with this statement according to Jaina? So, obviously, question is about, and I have checked your paper, most of you or almost all of you have understood the demand of the question. That is, question is about Syadava. Now, there is some problem with respect to kind of fulfilling the demand, that I will come to it, like the way you people have solved it. Regarding that, I am talking about. So, what corrections, and the second part of the question is, what corrections this suggests to remove the problem. Okay. Now, as we discussed, question is about Syadvad. So, what question is saying basically, what is the demand of the question? Basically, demand of the question is elaborate relativistic epistemology of Jaina. That is Syadvad. Okay, but how? Then basically, first, how would you structure it basically? So, this is what the demand of the question. So, now, once we know the demand of the question, next immediate work that we need to do is picturize and imagine how we are going to write. Okay, as you already know, you will write intro first. Okay, then you write subheading 1, then you will write subheading 2, then you will write critical comment, and then you will write conclusion. So, for 10 marker, as we already discussed, this much you can imagine, depending on the size of your handwriting and all that, it may go little bit here and there. That's not an issue. Okay, as I was mentioning yesterday, these words are just for reference. You are not going to write those words in paper. Now, what would you write in introduction? This aspect. Whatever is the demand rephrased in the form of some kind of question is exactly what introduction is. So, how would you introduce? Jainism is a relativistic pluralism, or Jainism philosophy is relativistic epistemologically and pluralistic metaphysically. Okay, you can also talk about directly Syadvad. So, Jainism epistemology is nothing but Syadvad, where relativism or relativistic aspect of knowledge is being focused. Okay, so no place for absolute except Kaivalya Gyan for Tirtha class. So, this basic thing you can put it in introduction, and I think most of you have done it fairly satisfactory. Okay, then comes the subheading. Now, the point is that, as we have been discussing, the structuring of the question. Now, you understood what introduction is. Okay, you will talk about basically relativism in epistemology of Jaina, right? So, the problem here is the structuring of the question should be according to the wording of the question. The question says table exists. What is the problem with the statement? So, first subheading is problem with. Now, this is a small statement, so we can rewrite, or you can just write problem as a subheading. That is also okay. Okay. Now, what is the problem? The absolute statement. Okay. Then no statement. This is the absolute statement, but no statement can be absolute. Okay. As reality has infinite aspect and one cannot grasp all at the same time. So every statement or every knowledge is a judgment which depicts partial knowledge, that is Nai. So you talk about Nai here, okay, and here you need to mention, so sorry, so the problem here is that this is partial knowledge and it cannot be taken as the absolute knowledge, it cannot be taken as the knowledge proper. So cannot take as knowledge proper. This concept of knowledge proper is very important in philosophy. The wording, there are some typical words like substance, causation, fallacy, like that. Knowledge proper is also typical word. Knowledge proper means proper knowledge, basically uncontradicted, acceptable, plausible kind of knowledge. Now second subheading is, now as yesterday also happened, little bit here and there. So second subheading will be what? The solution. Now here solution correction, you can write Syadwad. As I mentioned, this will actually come here. If you write 3-4 points, it will come here only. If you write in your paper, then in Syadwad you talk about Syadwad. You know this relative. This thing is judgment is relative. Give example of elephant and blind man, right? Overall talk about, then also talk about as a sub part, saptabanginay, okay, and then the corrected statement would be is equal to Syat table like this. You also mention sat as somehow or in a particular context, table like this. So Syadwada says this. Then comes criticism. Now here very briefly you have to mention about criticism of Syadwad, especially criticism by Advait about Syadwad being self-contradictory. That itself is enough, okay, and other schools of philosophy also talks about that being self-contradictory. If everything is relative, Syadwad itself becomes relative. That way you can talk about it there. And then conclusion. Now Jainism conclusion, make sure that you mention about, if it is, especially if it is about Syadwad and Saptabanginay, respect to others' opinion. So this is kind of a gift of Jainism to the world. So, and you know this statement. So Syadwad and Saptabanginay relativistic, this thing is particularly gives respect to somebody else's opinion, considering that my opinion and others' opinion both are relative opinions. So every knowledge is relative because every knowledge is partial. Now relative as in it is partial, it is incomplete. That is not able to cover all the aspects of the things. That's why it is relative. Relative as in it is not wrong. First of all, that also you need to mention. They are not talking about the knowledge being wrong. They are talking about knowledge being partial. Okay, and no one knowledge can be complete by itself. And that's all. That's how this question has to be talked about. Now, some issues is like some people have mistaken, and this happens. I have seen in my foundation batch also and other test series also. People confuse Syadwad with Saptabanginay. Saptabanginay is completely different. Syadwad is completely different. As in, they obviously they have link in them, but what they are talking about is two different things, two different aspects of the one thing. Like Saptabangina is a more like a logical aspect, like how many different ways one's reality can be explained, or how many different types of statements are available in the world. Okay, like this Chatuskoti of Buddhism, they have four statements. Okay, what are the four statements of Chatuskoti? Affirmative, negative, affirmating am negative, neither affirmative nor negative. So this is called Chatuskoti. So table is there, table is not there, table is there and not there, neither table is there, nor it is not there, like that. So there is another form, that is S is P, S is P, S is not P, S is P and not P, and this is not S and not P, neither S, neither P. So there is addition. This is Saptabangini I am talking about. Syadvad is a very different thing. In the sense, Syadvad is about the elephant story. Syadvad is about the Anekantvad, reality having different aspects. Syadvad is about you cannot know all the aspects and things like that. These are just types. These are types of judgments. Okay. So how you will express whatever knowledge you have, you can express in, now here 4 according to Buddhism, but they add indeterminate. So Sat, Syat, Avyaktam. Now again, you have to put Syat to make it better, to make it knowledge proper. That is because of Syadvan. And you know the rest of this 7. But adding this is Syadvan. Okay. This itself is not Syadva, this itself is Saptabangina, which is on the similar line as Chatuskoti. Chatuskoti means 4 different ways of, 4 different kinds of logical statements. So most of you got, some of you rather I would say, got confused. Second, the subheading should be according to the answer. Okay, subheading should not be according to your knowledge. It should be whatever question is asking, the subheading should talk about. Okay. So some of you, what they have done is, in conclusion, they have just summarized everything that they have written above. Not a good idea. You can add something more. Talk about Jainism. Talk about especially Syadvad in a positive light, or maybe some kind of little glorification kind of thing, because it's a positive thing to glorify. Okay. Then, and yes, demand of the question as in flow. Now some of you have also have some problem, not with the content, but managing the flow. Now managing the flow, or managing the flow, this system that we talk about always, intro, subheading 1, subheading 2, critical comment, conclusion, will help you. So as we already discussed, this 1 plus 6 minute, 7 minute model, 1 plus 6. So first minute, what you need to do is think all this, think about this, formulate the subheading. Now subheading should be, the wording of the subheading should be known to you before you start writing answer. Maybe you can write introduction. That also how it comes. Introduction is nothing but demand. So first articulate the demand in your mind. What exactly is the question asking? And if you know what question is asking, then only you can formulate a better introduction. Formulating introduction is nothing but whatever is the demand that you can conceptualize, articulate that in the form of answer. Just statement, Jainism is this, like that. The epistemology of Jaina is relativistic, jo bhi hai yahan pe, context. Then comes subheading. Now subheading, before writing the points, both the subheadings, especially for the 10 markers, 2 subheadings, you may require 3, depends on answer. Maybe sometimes it will be only 1, but most time likely it will be 2. In this particular question, there are 2 subparts, so anyway 2 are anyway there. One is about problem, second is about suggestions or removal or solution, corrections, right? Then comes criticism. So somewhere this structuring, if you can do prior, what happens is, as I have been talking about, mentioning about to you, that you can finish your answer in that 150 words. You can finish your answer within time, and all the points also will be easily covered. Okay. Let's see the second question. Now this is 15 marker. So the second question is about bondage liberation. Now, though it is 15 marker, the question is not very complicated. This question is simple, straightforward, right? Explain the process of bondage and liberation according to Jainism. This is 15 marks. Okay. Now 15 mark means you need to imagine 3 pages. 15 marks means you need to imagine 3 pages. Same logic here. So first you will write introduction, then you will write subheading 1, then you will write maybe here subheading 2, or maybe here subheading 2. Then, as I mentioned, it is 15 marks, so you also may need to write subheading 3. Then you write criticism and then conclusion. That's how you write. Okay. Now this question is little bit straightforward, but I'll just mention to you as to what things you need to write. So again, introduction. Now here introduction is straightforward. The question is about bondage and liberation. So you talk about Jainism being pluralistic philosophy where there are infinite number of jivas in the world. Everything that is animate, jiva is also one of the substance. Everything that is animate is categorized as jiva, and everything of that sort has soul. So soul is the essence of jiva. Soul is consciousness, is the essential quality of the soul, essence of the soul. These things you can mention in introduction. So relativistic, realistic pluralism is what Jainism is, and jiva is one of the substances of which some are baddha and some are mukta. So baddha jiva need to strive for liberation to achieve their. Now here concept of liberation is like achieving back what the soul is inherently. Soul is basically, that is Ananta Chatushte. So Ananta Chatushte also can be, some mention, if it is there in the introduction, would be good idea. Then comes subheading. So first subheading will be like bondage of jiva. Okay. Then second subheading will be theory of karma. How karma works in bondage. Okay. And third will be obviously liberation. Then critical comment is there, especially from Charvak. And then conclusion. Now conclusion, you can talk about general bondage and liberation in Indian philosophy with specific context or special focus to on Jainism. Now this, you don't need to write these things on the paper. That I am not suggesting. You write down on the side of the paper, or not side of the paper, not this side. I am talking about some rough paper that you have. You note it down what you are going to be writing, because you don't know how much space this will take, how much space this will take, and all that. Okay. So you talk about bondage of Jiva. Jiva, first mention about Jeev, whatever it is originally, you know. What is the concept of Jeev? Jeev is also one of the substances category. Okay, is animate substance, Mukt and Baddh. Now, big bondage comes into picture because of the beginningless ignorance. So there is this. We talk about Jeev, then talk about beginningless ignorance, then talk about passions. Then, because of the passion, then there is this yoga. Yoga means Jiva and Udgala. Then you talk about Kashaya. Then you talk about Karma Pudgala. And that's how one gets into bondage, pain and suffering. Okay. Passion itself are Krodh, Man, Maya, Lobh. Those things you, obviously the detailed aspects will get it through notes. Then comes theory of karma. Now karma is law of karma basically. So law of karma के हिसाब से you get whatever, however your karmas are, accordingly you get your fruits, etc. You mentioned. Then you talk about Ghatiya karma, Ghatiya and Aghatiya, harmful, not non-harmful. Okay. Then you, if you get rid of Ghatiya and then Aghatiya, liberation is possible. That's what they talk about. Okay. There are 8 types and all that. Then comes liberation. Now, how liberation happens? First of all, Ratnatrayi, 3 jewels, right faith, right knowledge, and right conduct. Okay. Now, here right faith means faith in Tirthankaras. Right knowledge is knowledge about things as it is, and right conduct is the process that Pancha Mahabharata and things like that they have been talking about. Then what happens? You talk about Samvar, you talk about Nirjar, you talk about Ananta Chatuste, you talk about Siddhasila and Keval Gyan. So, see, if you write point wise, what happens for the evaluator? It seems like you have written many points. Okay, and then comes Charvak. Now there won't be much points, maybe 1 or 2. For Charvak, soul is not there. So moksha, liberation, nothing is there, and bondage and liberation, the cardinal feature of Indian philosophy and things like that you talk about in conclusion. So that's how you should be actually writing. So please try to understand what I am trying to communicate. There is a process, and if you practice this process, what happens? You will be able to kind of come to the hold of things. Process is, first think about introduction. Okay, then after that chalk out the subheadings including criticism, and then come to the conclusion. These things should be written on the rough paper, and overall kind of idea as to what I'm going to write in every compartment you should be having, number 1. Number 2, once you write the first subheading, then try to write point wise. What happens then? Maybe you may not have 5, 6 points. You can have, you just remember 3 points. Okay, no problem, write 3 points. Then write 3, 4 points, like that. You kind of fill it. And then on the basis of answer, automatically you'll feel or you'll find some conclusion. Very easy. And if you follow this, practice this, I can guarantee 6 minutes, 7 minutes is more than enough for the 10 mark. Now here You may take more than 1 minute because there it is 6 minutes, here it is around 15 marker, means around 9 to 10 minutes you can have for the question, right? 9 to 10 minutes. So you can have 1 plus 8 or 1 plus 9, because 10 marker we need 7 minutes. So plus 3.5, that is around 10 minutes you have. And then for the 20 markers, obviously you have around 14 minutes. So there 2 minutes you can think and 12 minutes you can write. Okay. So thank you very much.